Murderers so cold-blooded, they even chilled the police. Today, we look at the most horrific people the FBI has tried to cover up from the public. These serial killers were able to do their gruesome work for many years before being caught by the FBI. Stick around until the end to learn about one particularly disturbing man who claimed over 100 lives. Before we start, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more exciting videos. The Freeway Killer, William Bonin. William Bonin, better known as the Freeway Killer, rose to fame through a series of sadistic murders. Bonin was outwardly a simple truck driver, driving through North America, but on his journeys, he kept collecting hitchhikers, raping and torturing them. In total, he is said to have killed 21 boys and young men within a year. Bonin was finally arrested in Hollywood on June 11, 1980. At the time, a boy was in his custody whom he had raped. With the arrest, the full extent of Bonin's horror finally became known. He always had a wire, rope, and tire iron with him in order to always be prepared for the next murder. A last-minute request by his lawyers to spare his life was denied. Bonin's last sentence sends a real shiver down your spine. "You think my death will draw a line," he said, but that's not the case. You'll find out. Charles Chitatning and Leonard Lake. Charles Ning came to America from Hong Kong on a student visa. In an accident with a hit and run, he was noticed by the police for the first time. In Northern California, he finally met Leonard Lake, a fateful meeting. Both understood each other immediately and their mutual willingness to use violence. On a farm, they tortured and raped numerous victims. Not only that, they also filmed themselves doing it. What was intended as a great cruelty ultimately became their undoing. The evidence ultimately fell into the hands of the FBI. The crime was discovered in 1985 after Lake took his own life. The police officers who searched his ranch found the human remains of their victims there. Ning was arrested in Canada for shoplifting and was only handed over to the U.S. authorities after a long extradition process. He is currently on death row at San Quentin State Prison. Herbert Mullen. At least 13 people were murdered by Herbert Mullen in the early 1970s. Before his series of murders, Mullen was considered a successful student and gifted thinker. But in his mid-30s, he became a serial killer. One of his actions were related to his paranoid schizophrenia. By his own admission, Mullen believed his crimes would prevent earthquakes in California. He saw his delusion confirmed by the fact that coincidentally, no earthquake took place during his murder series. But after his arrest, it did. Mullen's oldest victim was 73 and his youngest just 4. Until his death in 2022, Mullen showed no remorse and even after a long period of imprisonment, still posed a great danger to society. Christopher Scarver. Although Christopher Scarver only killed 3 people, he nevertheless went down in history. Scarver lost his job as a carpenter in Wisconsin and subsequently succumbed to alcoholism and delusions. On June 1, 1990, things escalated. Scarver drove to his former place of work and shot dead an employee present while extorting money from the site manager. However, Scarver only became known during his prison sentence. In November 28, 1994, he was assigned to an operation with 2 other prisoners. When they were left unattended, Scarver grabbed a metal bar and bludgeoned his fellow inmates to death. One of the victims was Jesse Anderson, who had killed his wife. The other inmate was none other than the infamous cannibalistic serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. Scarver told law enforcement officers, "God told me to do it. Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer are dead." Charles Cullen. Charles Cullen left behind an unimaginably large number of victims. According to his own statements, he killed at least 40 people during his term as a nurse. In truth, however, the number of people killed by Cullen could be as many as 300. As a nurse, Cullen killed patients with excessive doses of drugs they didn't need. In all, he worked at 10 hospitals across the United States. The murders didn't go unnoticed there over the years. He killed his first victim in 1988 before being caught in 2003. In the trial that followed, he he initially admitted to 40 victims, but only because he couldn't remember the others' names. Cullen himself says he only wanted to redeem his victims. He wouldn't want them to be dehumanized in the hospital. He is currently serving his life sentence in New Jersey. Robert Hansen. The butcher-baker Robert Hansen is probably the most well-known serial killer in Alaska. There, he kidnapped women and took them into the wilderness, where he began to hunt them like cattle. Even more frightening is why he got away with the murders. On the surface, he was the perfect, peaceable husband and worked as a baker. All in all, Hansen kidnapped up to 17 women, whom he always first took to his basement, where he tied, tortured, and raped them. He then flew them into the wilderness, where he began to hunt them down with a rifle and knife and brutally butchered them. But his last victim managed to escape. Through her statement to the authorities, the police managed to place Robert. In 1983, he was sentenced to 461 years in prison, which he served until his death in 2014. These were the deadliest criminals the FBI has tried to cover and lead on from the public. Which act surprised you the most? Write it in the comments and give us a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another video. Until next time.